This is Joshua with Variant News Source. I'm sitting here with Greg Sestero for the premiere tonight here in Coral Gables Art Cinema of Best Friends Volume 2. How you doing tonight, Greg?
Doing very well.
Awesome. Just had a couple questions while we're here sitting down. One of the things I had noticed when I was watching Volume 1 was actually at the same theater that I had a chance to first hear about the project when you were promoting the Disaster Artist book. And it kind of felt like a stark contrast in the production of The Room by comparison. Can you describe the feeling of what it was like being on this set versus, because we all know how the experience was for The Room, but what was it like on this set? Because it seems so cerebral, some of the settings, the events that take place. How was it for you this time around on set with Tommy?
This time making Best Friends, I had a really great time. I think it helped that Tommy was an actor and he was playing a role that he was very comfortable in. He could show up dressed very much like how he would dress in real life. He knew his lines, we rehearsed. So it was more prepared and, more organized and just more fun. I think there wasn't really, making Best Friends, there wasn't really any pressure. I felt like we were going out to do this because we wanted to make something new. We weren't trying to emulate The Room. We weren't trying to make a blockbuster. We really were just trying to go out and make something new. And I think because of that, we had a lot more fun.
Yeah, it seems like Tommy is a little bit more unhinged, but in a sense, like it was purposely. Since you wrote the film, did you kind of take the sensibilities of what was so eccentric about Tommy's acting, capitalize that? Because the Mortician character alone is just kind of very eccentric, and his mannerisms are very over the top. Sometimes they're still very dramatic, in very Tommy fashion, but at the same time still very over the top, very flamboyant. Was that a purpose? Was that done on purpose to kind of utilize Tommy, but not in just to see it in a more humorous effect, but actually hey, he can work a character based on this even?
Yeah, I think I've always felt he was an intriguing performer, and I just at this point it hadn't been utilized properly. So this role was really him playing a character and giving him a chance to be an actor. And I think never did we try to poke fun at him or put him in a position where it would be a joke. We just tried to take these scenes as seriously as possible with him playing this part that fit him.
Yeah, because that seems to make a lot of sense. Like I said, you guys both seem like you're having a lot of fun doing it. One of the things that I remember hearing about the Disaster Artist was how strict it seemed like with Tommy allowing the rights to the film unless he was allowed to be in the film at least a certain amount of time, or he had a strict guideline from my understanding as to how it had to be done in order for him to say go ahead with the project. Was there anything like that for this film? How did Tommy feel about going into it knowing you wrote it? Was it just, hey, I want to do a project with Greg, or did he have any special conditions this time around to be involved with this project?
Yeah, and it was a really strange one. The only thing he wanted was for he and I to be the same height in the movie. Wow. And I didn't quite comprehend that, but I thought if that's all he wants, give it to him. But other than that, he was really supportive. He gave his input into the script. He never really tried to change much. He just, I think, was just excited to work again. And, he gave us a lot of support. And he did what we asked him to do. And he was great to work with on this movie.
And would it be any coincidence that in Volume 1, Paul Scheer is in the film, and he did an episode, I'm sure of How Did This Get Made about The Room. Was that because of his love for The Room that he somehow got in contact with you guys about being involved with it?
Well, I was on his podcast, How Did This Get Made, which was a great episode about The Room, and his podcast is so much fun. So we've kept in touch since then. So when I wrote this script, I wrote a part for Paul Scheer and reached out to him, and he was kind enough to be a part of it.
Very cool. So yeah, you're credited as a writer for the screenplay, which I think you did wonderful on, at least from the first film. This will be my first time checking out Volume 2, by the way. Are you working on any other future projects based on how you feel this is getting received?
Yeah, I really, like I said, making these movies were great, especially Volume 2. I had such a great time making that movie, and it really pushed me to want to make a horror film. And so that's what I'm working on now. I feel like the films that I've responded to the most over these few years have been, It Follows, Hereditary, The Babadook, psychological horror, and so that's the next challenge.
Yeah, I would agree. Those are probably that style of horror is definitely the best of what's coming out in that genre currently. And during my screening of Best Friends the first time, there was the action-packed sizzle reel at the end, and it's implying that Volume 2 is next. And this is a story of two parts. Was that something that led to splitting into two films that couldn't be done into one? Like, what was the specific reason you felt that this story couldn't have been edited to be one film? It was like, I want to tell the whole thing. I want to make this two pictures.
I showed a friend of mine, like, the first part kind of that we were editing. It was planned to be one film. And, he got to the end of one, and he was just, like, baffled, kind of like this guy. And he thought that was the end of the movie. And so I thought that was really interesting, because it was like, you have a whole another couple acts that are coming that are my favorite stuff that we've shot. And so I feel like cutting so much of it down, you would have lost just what was good about each part of the story. And so that's where he came up with the idea to craft each one into their own film.
Okay. As far as the title being Best Friends, Tommy and you, going back to the history of the room, my original question for you, Greg, was going to be something along the effect of, in one word, how would you describe you and Tommy's friendship in real life as it stands today? But how would you just describe it, period, as it stands today?
Unique.
One word, and so it's pretty much the same thing. But yeah, I was just curious, because I know you guys do a lot of public appearances together, QAs. You tour the film, the room, and people generally want to see you two together. Goes together. It's part of the process of the legacy of that, what made that film last so long. So that's why I was just curious, and I found the writing style that you had for it. It was very pleasing and easy to read for the Disaster Artist book. Are you going to move into any other novel writing?
I think storytelling, whether that's novel writing or screenplays. I loved writing the Disaster Artist. I learned how important collaboration is with my co-author, and just telling stories in whatever form, whatever comes to my mind is what I want to try to pursue.
I have a friend of mine. He had said that he listened to the Disaster Artist as an audiobook, and he said it was one of the best audiobooks that he's ever heard because of the fact that you did Tommy Wiseau's voice so much, so perfectly, like almost spot on. Could you give us a little example of that, just a little preview?
Well, yeah, I study acting now, 20 years, and I'm very proud of it, and a lot of people don't give me credit, but that's fine. I don't need credit. I'm very happy where I am, and that's the story.
Very good story, Mark. Very, very funny. Yeah, and like I said, I found that was a very easy book to read. It was an excellent writing style, so I was curious to see if that was something you were going to continue doing. And with vastly different locations and characters and best friends in the story, set comes from a different exemplifies experience in making filmmaking. So I ask, what made you want to do a film that was this experimental after this many this far into your career of doing other projects, being involved with kind of a parody of things that people saw you from the room? Is this something that you said you like, I want to make a real showing artistic, almost avant-garde film?
Yeah, I mean, from the room, what can you do, right? It's so unique and celebrated for many different reasons, but I just wanted to go out there and make something new. And I'd been inspired by a lot of films that I'd seen, noir films, and I really wanted to kind of go out there and kind of flex whatever creativity I'd built up over the years, and that was. I
think I heard you say Sunset Boulevard was a film that really inspired you. It was a really noir film from the L.A., and it seemed like you were interested in that. And yeah, so is that something that we could expect more from you beyond Best Friends, to kind of stretch your acting chops? Because honestly, after I saw this, there was the Greg Sestero that was in Puppet Master, the Greg Sestero that had a Malcolm in the Middle spot, and then you had the Greg Sestero that was in the room, and now you have the Greg Sestero of Best Friends. And it's funny because my mom is so late to this, and I got her to watch The Disaster Artist. She always wants to see the Oscar pictures and whatever have you. And then she sees that, and then she sees that film. She saw The Room, and then she saw Best Friends, and she was like, "It's two different people." She was excited about the idea of of being able to see you live and see this film. So has the audience reaction been generally leaning towards that?
Yeah, I think they're pleasantly surprised, for the most part. I think if you're coming here expecting The Room, you're probably not going to get that. But I think once they get warmed up in Volume 1, Volume 2 really kind of goes in a dark direction that I think people have responded well to.
Darker than the Mark Knight. The Nerdist video, by the way, if you haven't seen that, it is hilarious. Him and Tommy reenact the interrogation scene from The Dark Knight. It's great. One of the questions that we always like to finish with is, I used to say Netflix, but now there's just too many streaming programs, I think. What are some of the shows that Greg Sestero likes to binge watch on streaming?
I binge watched Breaking Bad, Fargo Season 1, Season 2, True Detective Season 1.
Yeah, Season 2 was a little bit of a disappointment for me.
Yeah, I saw the first episode, and I much prefer Season 1.
Yeah, Season 1 was great. Well, I'm going to end it there because this premiere is about to get started. Thank you for joining us, Greg. I appreciate you being on the show. And have a good night.
Thank you guys for having me.